Uncuffed is live. We're trying to do what we can to switch on over from audio podcasts to video podcasts. So this is going to be kind of like a hybrid style recording episode number 16. Joe, what's the name of our episode going to be?
I would say mental health and humanity.
Mental health and humanity. We were trying to figure out which one. I was going to come up with, the joining of two forces, but health and humanity is spot on. Okay? So that's what we're going to call our episode today. Kshedduncuffed is
As they're making smoothies in the background, we're going to be making smoothies for you. We're going to be pouring it out nice and delicious and rich and dense with good stuff that's going to make you go, oh yeah, heaven in a cup right here on Kshedduncuffed.
But with the daily vitamin, and that's there to keep you all lively and inspired and all that stuff. But one of the main reasons why Kshedduncuffed was created was to kind of take advantage of the platform to be able to reach out to certain people, not just in person, but remotely. With all the streaming services that they have going on right now, it's important to be able to tap into that. And so with me being a former police officer, it gives me more dimensions than probably a normal person, because I was inside the establishment of the police department. And imagine, a police officer who's black. So I've experienced a lot of different things. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to revisit mental health, it's kind of like a situation where how I retired from being a police officer wasn't mutual. It was kind of like a forced situation. I wasn't prepared to be done, but it was made that way. So in short, I felt that a white supervisor was treating me unfairly due to my race. I did everything I could to be able to try to go to other supervisors and ask for help. The situation did not cease. It almost got worse. So as the months went by, I was trying to make it work, because I knew this particular supervisor was going to be retiring soon. So rather than it kind of like dying off, it just continued to get worse, and nobody was helping me. So what I ended up having to do was go to human resources, and I filed a grievance against the supervisor. Once the unit that I was in at the time heard about that, rather than back me up, I'm the victim. Rather than back me up, they chose to back up this white supervisor who was getting ready to retire sometime soon. And then they banded together and they retaliated against me, made life miserable. So in the end, I did the best I could. I would go about my day. I was a detective at the time. I'd go about my day and I'd handle my cases out in the streets. Then all of a sudden, they started kind of, calling me up and say, hey, where you at? You need to come back to the station. And now I'm back at the station dealing with this hostile environment, which made no sense. So all kinds of protocols and policies were broken. You can't do that to someone, who's filed a complaint of discrimination. You just can't do that. You got to protect them. But rather than doing that, they did the exact opposite. So one time there was a situation where they felt that I did something wrong on an investigation. I'd go in this air quotes and stuff like that. That's their version. And so I ended up getting put on leave because they felt that I did not do a check that I was supposed to do, which I ended up doing, and it was proved down the road. But anyway, so when I was placed on leave, I started going on a downward spiral, and just this depression, couldn't get up, my family's looking at me like, what's wrong with dad? I had no real inner energy to get up out of the bed and go. My wife was just saying, you need to get up there and start doing another job and do something to stay busy. It was very, very tough. And one particular night, it was our anniversary, I think, me and my wife's anniversary or something like that. So we go to a comedy club out there in San Francisco, right? And just to kind of keep myself busy and everything. So as we're driving home, there's this car that pulls right up next to us, just out of the blue in San Francisco, starts yelling at me. I'm driving and stuff, and then here I am in a back and forth, kind of like a road rage situation with this dude, and he has a passenger and stuff, and they just would not back off. I'm yelling at them. I'm thinking if I yell back and I kind of puff my chest up a little bit, they see this angry black dude, they may back off a little bit. That didn't happen. These guys kept coming back and forth with me. Now they're kind of, paralleling us as we're trying to head through San Francisco towards the Bay Bridge. And I'm just like, wait a minute here, this is getting scary. I don't want to be doing this back and forth on the Bay Bridge. So I stopped right before the Bay Bridge, right? And I parked my car up a little bit and I got out because I didn't want them to come over where I was to harm my wife. So I go over where these guys are, and I'm kind of in these dudes' face, the passenger. I'm like, what the F, man? And there's like, what the F back at me? And the passenger said, you better get out of here. And I didn't even notice he had a gun pointed right at my stomach. And rather than, you can go through all the different motions of what you should do in that moment. I chose probably the worst thing I could do. I lunged for him and I tried to grab that gun. And luckily, I think that scared the driver, and he punched it, and they zipped out of there. And when I got in the car, I was in shock because Nisha didn't know what had just happened. When I told her, she's like, what did you just do? So the next day, I had to, she forced me to start calling my therapist again. So I called her up, and after talking to her again, she asked me, Kenny, are you suicidal? Do you want to die? And it shook me a little bit. And I just I don't know. Maybe my subconscious was saying, it's time to get out of here. And I didn't know how else to do it other than I couldn't do it myself. So my mind was in a different place. Luckily, the therapist was able to talk me down, talk me off the ledge, which we're going to talk more into down the road. Talk me down the ledge. She was able to get me to see my inner strengths and to let go of the police department. Let it go, Kenny, is what she said. Your time has kind of come past. And once I made that decision to let it go, and I advised my police department that I'm done fighting you guys. It's been a good ride. I'm going to mutually part ways. And that's how it all ended. And the police department obviously moves on. And I've lived a better life ever since then. So I'm now back even. So I reached out to some friends here and, kind of like for encouragement and all that stuff. And the one person I'm always going to think of when it comes to mental health, I'm making is my guy here. Joe, can you introduce yourself and tell me, man, what you bring to the table here with this?
Yeah, well, Kenny, I gotta say, this is kind of like an answered prayer to have this conversation because it's such a tough role to be a police officer and be expected of the community to be there when you need them. But then when you're in need, it's like, yeah, well, that's not our problem, for the community, for the most part. And again, to me, anyone who's going to risk their life to help somebody else, to save somebody else, is family to me. So that's like an automatic bond of family right there. And like any family, you're going to have your different characters. You're going to have those who abuse their roles within it. You're going to have those who are different. But in general, that's the respect I have for the role of the physician. And again, to know that you have that experience and now that you're uncuffed and you're more free to speak, it's good for me because we are in a time where we really need to understand each other's behavior and what's coming down the road. Because if we don't recognize the incipients of what's happening, we're going to be too much in the storm of it to do anything. And there's an expression I've heard once that said, words are impotent in times of war. When there's war, words are impotent. Something like that. Meaning there comes a time when words don't have power anymore. So we have to act when there's still a chance of reason. When more people have come over too much with their rage and their anger and their delusion, we have to somehow get into how people feel deep down inside, how they look at each other, how they see each other, how they perceive each other, how they empathize with others. And for me as a paramedic, I was noticing we're responding to all these traumas. In my opinion, they could have been prevented if people, again, would just look at each other differently, look at each other with more respect. And I come from a place where there was racism flat out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's
Where was that?
Newtown, Connecticut. I am actually from Sandy Hook. I attended Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Sandy Hook? The Sandy Hook?
The Sandy Hook.
Holy smokes.
From winter 4th grade into winter 5th grade. Very last place I lived in Connecticut before moving to California in the middle of sophomore year was right across the street from the volunteer fire department, which is right adjacent to the driveway to Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Wow.
So I literally lived up the hill from Sandy Hook Elementary before moving here.
Wow.
When I go back there, I had an aunt who lived down in Riverside Road by Lake Zor, and so we'd have to pass to school all the time. You know, each trip in town, out of town. You got where I was going.
No, so you've seen it all, like
Yeah.
hate everywhere you seem to go, right?
I have, and that's where we're gonna get to this with trauma and tragedy. Now, especially when we hear from the top that people can look at their fellow citizens as enemies, can look at their fellow citizens as that person. I think that is the biggest ancient seduction of humanity, is to convince people to look at other people by a label, by a group, anything other than who they are. And in that way, that's where all that falsehood begins. That is decay of humanity. That's where it begins, by looking at people and calling them what they're not. And because you called them what they're not, you think it's justified to do what we've been taught not to do since our youth. And the one trick of the devil, if you will, by any name you want to call it, evil, devil, whatever, that one trick of inhumanity is to get people to believe their untrue statement is true. You know, religions since the beginning of time have tried to put that in words. Don't worship idols. Don't be an idolater. And people are like, that's crazy. Nobody goes around and worships an idol. Nobody worships something that they put in stone. But yet they'll worship their idea, their imagined creation of, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. We'll do everything according to this imagination.
Yeah.
And I will call this imagination truth. And part of the way that it becomes successful is, again, how we describe the world around us. And I literally heard the N-word. I mean, nothing, and I didn't hear it like, hey, man, you're my brother, nigga. It wasn't put like that. It was those
It was the
N-word.
official
It was,
Mississippi version.
And I'm going to share you an embarrassing story.
Well, so, I mean, just, for the audio, people who are listening audio, I'm sitting here, I'm a black dude right here, sitting with two fine-looking white dudes and stuff like that, who are very, very, very white. There's no mistaking, they're very white. So, obviously, you can already see and know that especially me, and I grew up in Iowa, so I had a lot of white friends, and so I already know the type of experience they've had, which is growing up white. I hate this, and I'm not saying the black lives are, down here, but I'm quite sure that some of the experiences or some of the obstacles that they had to face aren't quite the same as what, some of the black people had to deal with. My uncle obviously grew up in Mississippi, and he would always say, it's not that I don't like being black, but sometimes it can be so dang inconvenient.
Sarah Bland.
Yeah.
I wrote that down, and because you asked us in the beginning, I think before you started recording, that you were going to hit us with questions. That
Sarah Bland.
if I surprised you with the fact that I was going to ask you questions about being a police officer, that you would want to ask us questions about racism. And I think Sarah Bland is an individual that brings both topics together really well. She died by suicide in custody after being pulled over for a blinker.
That's how I know that name.
For being pulled over by a blinker. No, it wasn't in San Leandro. It happened somewhere else.
Another state, I believe.
Yeah, but her story is reflective, though, of the general despair a person can feel when they have all of life ahead of them, but yet they won't be allowed to pursue it because of the racism that isn't called racism, that is denied as racism, but it is nothing less than racism. By looking at another individual as less than deserving of respect, as less than being motivated for good, looking at someone as looking to do harm, looking to do evil, and even by the residue of that suspicion in a person's soul, it pollutes how people interact. And so that's the racism that gets ignored and goes, oh, I'm not racism, it's just, but that's the way it is. You look at the brown on brown crime, stupidity, things like that. And they think that they've got facts to justify their ignorance and to justify the racism that they're not calling racism, because in their opinion, it's not. It's just, well, they're just different. Because when I talk to the American Heart Association, talk about institutional racism, is it racist to tell a person that, you are more predisposed to die for no real reason, except, you're black? But, here's other risk factors you might be able to take care of, like your diet, lack of stress, and all of these things. When, in my opinion, well, is it that it's the person's skin color that's just predispositioning them to cardiac arrest and sudden death? Or is it the fact that they're given more stress? They're being forced to eat the poorer diets, all these other things, all these other, and if that's not blatantly racist to tell somebody, we're not racist, everybody's the same. Well, you're more likely to die for no reason than we are because, you're just made that way. And that's blatantly racist. So I refuse to teach that and pass that along. So I would say this is what we've been told, but think about it. Is it really that, or is it because of all these other risk factors that they've noticed that they're loading on to people?
Hey, are there any punching bags here in the in Zocalos?
Are there any?
There's gonna be some heavy bag. We need a heavy bag because I can see us getting all wound up and jumping over this. At the same time, though, me being a police officer, 9 times out of 10, the suspect we were going to arrest was black.
No, I get it. Right?
So it's hard for me to be, supporting the black cause when I'm like showing up and I got some black dudes running after, you see some older white lady with a freaking knot the size of a baseball on the side of her head because she just got robbed and punched to the ground by a group of young black kids and stuff. So wouldn't you classify, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, what percentage of true racists do you think exists in the world in general? Because I can't say all white people are racist, but I know what a racist looks like if I saw it, because they don't hide anything. They tell you how they really feel. What do you guys think about that?
My grandpa was like that. My grandmother's second husband, totally like that. It right out of his mouth. Them this and them that. And that's all those them this. That.
And if they came to the house, it was on, huh?
I don't even remember that ever happening. But just even watching television on his couch, it's like, what the heck? But that was normal.
So was that what made you decide I got to get out of Connecticut because it was too bland, too nothing much going on, and you're just this highly inner spirit that just has to be, let go of? Don't give me a boring story now. Wayne just got done saying how boring white guys are. Give me something.
My mom moved to California to get as far away from her ex-husband as they could. He used to beat her.
Oh, no.
And so if there's anything that can take away the idea of white supremacy, it's watching white man beat your mother. So if there's anything in the world that can say that whole white myth is an effing myth, is to watch a man with pale skin beat your mother, and then you go through life hearing anybody somehow say that there's any kind of superiority in pale skin. It's like, that's the biggest bunch of bullshit. Wow. It's all about character as an individual, and that's what's important, is that we just try not to forget that we have to talk to each other like individuals who are their own individuals, not attached to the crimes of others, not attached to the sins, methodologies, myths, traditions of others, other than what we all are, product of what we've seen, heard, and taught, what we've learned. So every chance that we have to meet somebody is a new chance to bring light, to bring wisdom, to gain knowledge, to gain wisdom. But this all needs respect. And so all the talk about solutions, guns, no guns, mental health, until we actually really see other people as in the same boat we are, we're all walking each other home. I heard one proverb recently that said, we're all just walking each other home. Unless we really understand that and be mindful of that, we're always going to have the reasons to fight. It's easy, and the more greedy and selfish a person is, the more reasons they're going to have to keep other people. And we know we're in bad times now, where legislation is trying to bring back the divisions to male and female, to where, we're a man, you're a woman, so we can automatically say that other half doesn't have what we have, they can't get what we get, so it's automatically just cut off half our competition right now, put women down. There's something, they gotta do what they're told, they gotta obey, because that's what God said, so let's start legislating it.
Political stuff.
That is such a bunch of bull.
Political stuff is going to be something that we band together and we put our heads together like, okay, how do we fix this government stuff? You know, but at the same time, in order to be able to do that, we're gonna have to kind of like Wonder Twins. Remember that? We're gonna figure how do we do this? I don't know how we're gonna be able to fix the trans thing.
Well, part of it is calling out just the.
But imagine the mental anguish that they're going through right now.
Absolutely.
Well, so to bring it all back, I mean, we all, this is the open forum, and we're all gonna chime in as far as like. So I saw this one open forum, this one gentleman. I don't know his name, but he was a legislator. I know that he was like a council member or something like that, whatever city. So they had, and the discussion of that day was transgender, and so there was a lady. I'm going to say lady, but you could tell he was a trans lady. He had the man characteristics and stuff, and I think he even talked like with a deep voice. So it was very obvious that he was a man, but his point was to prove that he's now transitioning into a female. So he took advantage of the ability to ask this guy. So Joe, you brought up trans, so we're gonna go there because it all ties into mental health. And so he asked this council member, well, how do you define a woman? Tell me how you define a woman. And he's like, well, how do you define a woman? And he put it right back on him. And he's like, well, actually, let me ask you this. You're a paramedic, right? And you show up to a scene where a guy is transitioning into a female. He's obviously trans female. And you're the paramedic, you're a professional. You get there and you ask him, start treat him, and you ask him what's wrong. And he's like, the female says, I'm having a miscarriage. I think I'm having a miscarriage. Now that's a man because he identifies as he has a penis. So he's a man. So are you going to literally start treating him because he has a miscarriage? And unfortunately, what happened to the kid who asked the question? Turned pale. And he had you saw that? Had no other choice but than to say, no, I wouldn't. And then I think that ended that discussion right there.
You treat for abdominal pain. I honestly don't see why that's a problem, because obviously you might see something that you've got a man saying that he's having a miscarriage, but you might see the equipment doesn't match. But I don't know any paramedic who checks a patient's equipment just to make sure that they're telling the truth if they say they're male or female. It's not part of the did you verify gender by visual? They don't have boxes. Did you verify by palpation? Did you squeeze it to find out? Did you look at it to find out? No, they don't. I picked up a man from Salinas Valley or Salinas State Prison.
I gotta get Joe with it.
And that was good. I honestly didn't know. I thought it was a woman. I didn't know. The guard was with me. I had to show him the patient care report where it says male, female. I didn't know, so I asked the guard, and he said male because everyone in that prison is male. Oh. So I said okay, but I didn't know. But my feelings on this are, personally, I think that anyone who is against the trans community for any reason, personally, my opinion is it's because they don't feel comfortable with somebody where they have to be an all-around good person around them without any excuses. Meaning, if I know I'm hanging out with the guys, I might be able to talk like one of the guys and I'm safe. But if I'm hanging around with one of the guys, and it might not really be a guy, I ain't so safe. And people might not want that uncomfortable feeling. They want to just be a pig comfortably whenever they want to be a pig. Yeah. And if suddenly someone's making them feel like, oh, now I'm with somebody who might start treating me like meat, might start looking at me like I have to prove myself to not be physically forced or to be harassed or to be verbally made uncomfortable. I don't really like how that feels. So instead of me being a better human being and making sure I never put another person in that position as a man or whatever, I would rather just be against anybody making me feel that way. Screw empathy. I just want to be me. And if I want to be a pig and a jerk and biased and prejudiced, well, man, you better let me and not make me feel accountable that to see how it's wrong or how it feels wrong to have another one look at you as property or look at you like something they can use, something that they can just take into their own and become and do what they want to it.
So K-Shed Uncuffed is going on the road. To me, this is so important. Audio podcasts are cool, but studies are showing that it's becoming increasingly more important to go out and have video podcasts because you're sitting down there with your guests and all that stuff. So I'm gonna be going on the road. I'm gonna give you like John Madden and all that stuff and everything. Hey, sometimes I don't like to fly, so I might end up having to jump in my car and go 1,000 miles to who my next guest is going to be. But that's what we're going to do. K-Shed's going to make that happen because I feel like it's my job now to represent my race. I can't represent the white race, but I'm seeing some great representatives of the white race here today. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't jump in my car and come down to San Leandro and sit down with these guys. Stuff. So I'm getting one hell of an education today. When I was working, I had a call once where, unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, but there was this young kid at that age, that very fragile age, junior high, about to go into high school or whatever, and blonde hair, blue eyes, facial features that would, if they grow up, they would be a model, very pretty kid, a good-looking kid is how I'm kind of describing. So. One where model agencies would be going around and they would see this kid and, make him into a very pretty male model, right? So, but he wanted to be a girl. So our calls started shifting to family disputes because now this kid is letting his hair grow and transitioning to like makeup. And now he's a pretty kid, but more of a pretty girl. And now there's family disputes because they're not understanding what's going on. And he'll or she will go to school, get bullied, and then come home and need support. No one really knew how to do that. And unfortunately, she tried to kill herself one day. And on this particular call, the family calls because they're at work. And they got a call from her saying she's done and she's going to kill herself. So what we ended up, and they said she was going to do it by gas. So we are quickly getting there. Obviously, any call with any kid, you're busting your butt to get there. And we get there, we don't know what to expect. And there was no family there just yet. So me and the other officer, we know that they might have hurt themselves. So we had to go in. It was a very scary kind of call because we didn't know if they're going to take themselves out with a gun and then they're going to take us out too. So we had to proceed with caution into this house. Just him and I are searching this house to make sure that there's no dangers. And we can't see because there's smoke. It was crazy. It was a crazy scene. And then when we finally made it on this side of the house, we see her laid out and just barely not awake, not responsive. And then so now we have to say, paramedics got to come in there. We got to get in here now. It was a very, very tough call. And so in the end, our paramedics were able to get in safely and save this kid. But I don't remember any other good outcomes from any other calls from that house after that. I think she might have either left home or ran away or something might have happened that this wasn't a good outcome for this situation. And it's sad because I saw it from the very beginning, the transition period and then the fallout and it's the bullying thing and it's the mental health. How do you help these kids?
I was introduced to a woman some years ago, become lovers and live together. And about a year into our relationship, she received a letter from her son saying that he had known he was a woman trapped in a man's body since he was about 9 years old. And this was just a complete damn wow. He was off in college at the time. He got this letter. I hadn't met him yet. And that just threw her off into a wow, I wasn't expecting this. But then all of a sudden she started looking back and go, okay, well, now that makes sense. Well, now that makes sense.
Wow.
Well, okay, well, now that makes sense. But still, it was a reckoning for her of a time of, wow, what is this? So with the anticipation when he was going to come out, I didn't know what to expect, myself when I met him. But I met a man who who represented, the best of both. And I saw his mother, his beautiful mother, in him.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I did, and so what's wrong with that? And so that's why I think this whole anti-trans is really anti. It just shows a core of people are just generally against humanity if they're against somebody being themselves like that. Because it's been from the beginning of time, people have had love for AIDS just from the beginning of time.
And obviously we'll let you go with that, Wayne. But my job is to keep things light. So everybody knows me. I always kind of make jokes here and there and all that stuff. But people know I'm really, really serious and stuff like that too. But Joe, I thought you were going to say that he called his mother to say that he wanted to play for the San Francisco 49ers. And, that's the team that I consider my nemesis. I'm an Oakland Raider to the T. And I was just like, okay, all right, what's the worst thing I could think of at this point? So I take the time to take a dig at my rivals. And there's a reason why, one time when we were playing when I was playing with the Raiders, the freaking Niners were beating the crap out of, or the Cardinals one year, right? And we were beating the San Diego Chargers, right? And this is when the Raiders hated the Niners and all that stuff, big time. And we needed to win our game, and we needed the Niners to beat the Cardinals, so we can get that last spot in the playoffs. Or it wasn't the Cardinals. It had to be like an AFC team. So we needed them to beat that team. And they were beating the crap out of them at halftime. And we won our game, right? So we're all celebrating because the Niners are about to beat these guys and we're going to the playoffs. 10 minutes later, we get a score update. These Niners let the freaking team come back and beat them. And I know for a fact that it's because they didn't want to see us go to the playoffs. That's how much hate the Raiders and the Niners had for each other. I swear to God. I swear. So I want to obviously keep things light and all that stuff. We have to accept the fact that there's only going to be so much we can do for everything. And I mean, Joe,
that's a hard balance.
That's a hard balance. It is because for you, that one day when I don't know what led to that one day that the day.
Well, I don't know which way you're talking about, but I'm going to go back to an instant where...
I'm talking about the Golden Gate thing.
Okay, before that, I want to talk about apathy in that there was a time when I was watching my stepdad beat my mom, and I ran to a neighbor for help, and he said something that changed my life by watching. And as he's watching this fight, and I was saying, help, Daddy's beating up on me, he goes, I don't want to get involved. And that right there was probably one of the most serious...
My heart just sunk.
Was the most serious, probably influential instance of my life. Because with instant disbelief and shock and being appalled, I just looked at that like, how is that? What? I will never be that person, and I vow that instant I will never be that person. So when people say, well, there's only so much you can do, I'm like, yeah, well, that's so much. It's everything I can. It's like,
you're right.
Yeah, there's only so much.
You're right.
But the more you give, the more you're going to get. As a writer, trying to prevent war, as a writer, by trying to get people to see each other. People say, oh, poetry should be a hobby. Do it part-time. And I say, part-time labor produces gets part-time wages. And if I really, really want to prevent war, I got to give it full-time effort to expect any kind of success. So, yeah, there's only so much we can do, but I do believe we can do something. And it's all to all of us to do it. And we never know at what instant it's going to be that instant we have to shine, be that example for others. And the only way to do that is just be a good person by having love for the people around you, having respect for the people around you, acknowledging that the people around you may be just as divine and loved as you are, and God cherished them through life just like He did you. And even though they're in a bad time and you can't see clearly and they're angry and frustrated and yelling at somebody outside of a car because they're frustrated,
it just reflects itself all over. Can I share? So it's so wild that the topics of what we're talking about. But it seems there always be the ability to make amends with whatever. And the reason why I said that is to piggyback of what you just said. So growing up, and like I said, I grew up in Iowa. Iowa is like 95.6% white. The rest is everything else. So growing up in high school, I remember 3 or 4 in particular white guys who at that time they shaved their head and they started wearing the garb, the skinhead garb. Like, hey, there were some serious racists, and they let you know it. And just these good-looking dudes. I keep saying that because they weren't like these nasty ballers with muscles and stuff. They were just like really kind of down to earth, humble looking dudes. Then all of a sudden, everything just changed, and then now they turn into these scary looking guys who just would give it this look that appears through your soul. If you were black and you look and you got in their way, it was very, very scary. And everybody, they started making a reputation that you didn't mess with these guys. So the other black people in our school, we all just like, hey, leave these guys alone, and we did. So fast forward to later on in life, I'm on Facebook, and I'm you Facebook surfing, and you kind of look at, and one of these guys is like surrounded with family and function gatherings with nothing but black people. And I think he even married a black girl. I mean, because he's all close and have photos and stuff. I'm just like, I was shaking my head like, wait, what? It was so heartwarming and everything too. I wanted to call him up, message him up, but then I said, let me just leave that one alone, because it was just mind blowing how he'd go from that extreme to the next, And so I think you're right when you say, Joe, there is a way to save and bond and be there for people. It's just all you have to do is just figure out how to, kind of put yourself way in the back and focus on who it is you're talking to.
You gotta be willing to take a hit in a way in conversation. Meaning, we gotta be willing to be pummeled and still hold our ground, be decent human beings. And I think that's important, meaning that no matter how we're treated, it's still up to us to represent what's good, what's right. I've been in an alleyway with someone who literally told me he was a card-carrying member of the KKK. And I'm explaining to him the divinity of brown skin is like any color of a flower. It's totally asinine for one color to say to another color, I'm better than you. It's so silly if only I say that. And again, I'm saying this to somebody who literally told me he was a card-carrying member of the KKK. But I think we have to be willing to say what's right, even again when somebody has a different opinion, and not just be all jello-y and go, oh yeah, okay, well that opinion is okay, well okay. No, I think that's why a lot of horrible things happen, because there aren't enough people who are brave enough to stop somebody when they're only talking about the evil, when they're only talking about doing bad, that people are confident enough themselves and confident enough that there is a good path that we should be on, which means decency toward others. And if we stray from that, it's bad for everybody. It's bad for the individual who's doing it. It's bad for everybody around. So don't let it go branch off there, even in conversation. If someone starts talking about others as things, that is the instant right there where we're in danger. And that's as soon as one particular popular political candidate came onto the stage and started talking about people as things and dividing people as things, and it was like, oh.
You don't want to say his name, huh?
I won't. And you have the instant disease that I saw in that, the instant commencement of the spread of deadly, lethal disease started when people started accepting that it's okay to look at people as things. And by things, meaning whatever you call them, whatever name you want to give to somebody that doesn't acknowledge the fullness of all that they are, we're in trouble. And that's what's too accepted nowadays, and why I left the ambulance even, because I believe that when people don't respect others, it's because they don't see it. And so when one group hates another group and this group thinks that group, it's because there's not enough of that mingling for that group to know the other group. And because of that, they perfectly think it's okay to say what they say and believe what they believe, because in their world, that's the way it is. And unless there's enough of that understanding, there's no way to bridge that and make people not want to run down and chase and lynch some kid who was curious looking at a construction site. Wow, look at this. So this is what it looks like when they're just building it. Wow, this is pretty dang cool. Well, anyway, time to continue on my jog. And then all of a sudden be chased down by two people who won't let you leave. They won't let you explain yourself.
Three.
They won't let you get out of it. Yeah. And
No. That was I do exactly where you're going with that one. And that's what I love about you, man. You get
respect,
deep and you get wound up.
Give enough respect to know that looking at people like that ain't right. It's gonna just keep continuing and fostering, and there's gonna be this onto civil war, onto downright civil war, and that's unfortunately what some people are trying to plant because they believe they're going to be the ones that come out on top. So they're throwing they're throwing the embers into the forest, going ha ha ha. Oh, look at this! Oh, because I've got my fortifications, I've got my resources, got it all figured out. So I'm going to throw these little embers into the forest, and the forest will burn itself while I hide in my bunker or hide in my many miles of surrounded fenced in privilege.
Those compounds, huh?
Yeah. And how to break through that. What plagues me every day and why I, daily from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, trying to figure out how to get people to respect each other, to see that other people are just as divine as you are, which means they're not more likely to do something bad behind your back. You gotta be suspicious. And that's what people don't recognize as racist. And racist is when you look at anybody as in some way being less likely to please the great creator than you are. Period. If you don't think the person you're looking at is just as able to make God go, oh, right, I love you, man. I love you. You are so awesome. Then you don't see, and you can't, then whatever comes out of your mouth is going to be just partial vision stuff. It doesn't do as good for humanity as someone who really sees the fact that Kenny was spared. He swam through the lake of crocodiles, and here he is on the other side, retired.
The lake of crocodiles.
Hey, you did it, brother.
Well, hey, I would say 5% were those crocodiles. Yeah, but the other 95, I loved to death, and they just were great individuals, and I had a great time going out there in the streets, working with those. 20 years on the streets, and so. But I made some mistakes and all that stuff too. I mean, I let my mouth get the best of me when I should have been humble. And, sometimes what comes with that badge is that authority. And that was one of the most humbling things when I got my badge and gun and my keys to the building and all that stuff taken from me. And I was just like thrown outside into the cold. Yeah. What do you do now? And so when I transitioned from playing football to being a cop, it was easy because I already knew my retiring from the police or from the football was coming. So I was prepped and ready and I had all the stuff in place. What jarred me was that all of a sudden I have a job and I'm proposed to go 4 or 5 more years making some good money to set up my retirement. Right. And then I got into it apparently with some guy who had a different view than me and they wanted me out. And so that's what happened. And then just like that. So, life is full of struggle, but I'm no different than anybody else. And Joe, I don't know if you wanted to share for our listeners, the Golden Gate story.
Sure. On April 22nd, coincidentally, yesterday was April 22nd, but on April 22nd of 2005, I drove to the Golden Gate Bridge with the intent to jump off. And the reason for this was just not being able to escape this feeling that there are things more important than making money, and that thing more important than making money is trying to make peace on earth. And I was just surrounded by a constant demand that if you don't spend your time making money, you can't have a place to live, you can't have this, you can't have that. And all I had was the backseat of a car. Oh, because to me, again, time is the one thing we have that is probably the most sacred of all, because with it, from that one thing, we can do everything else. And I can see that there's no hour that I can spend that is more productive and beneficial for humanity than an hour that I can spend thinking and contemplating how to right our wrongs, how to somehow get us to see each other better. But by believing enough in people, to believe enough that we can get to that point where we don't want to shoot each other, is poverty, because people are like, I don't care, where's the money for this? You spare me your love of humanity, blah, blah, blah. Where's the money? I have people killing each other, raping each other, whatever. Where's the money? Oh, you think it's going to happen here? Yeah, well, I don't care. Where's the money? And so I just wanted to jump off the bridge. I didn't see an escape for it. It's not that I wanted to die. It's just I couldn't see an escape from without just how. Anyway, so
Yeah, no, wow.
I'm ashamed to say that I even when I dropped my older son off at school, he was going to City Arts and Tech in San Francisco, charter school in San Francisco, and I was so embarrassed I did this, and how could any father do this? But I dropped him off, and I told him that I was driving to the Golden Gate. I'm going to jump. There's nothing you can do to stop it. Whatever you do in life, don't be a paramedic and don't be a poet. Don't be a paramedic because of all the trauma it will expose you to. Don't be a poet because it'll make you think you can do something about it when you can't. And so don't be either of those things. And I'm only telling you I'm going to jump so you don't spend the rest of your life wondering what happened to Dad. Is he ever coming back? Will he ever show up in my life again? I want you to know that I'm not. I am going to kill myself because I don't see a way out of this. Living in the back of a car where you can't even, you just want to sleep, you're a criminal. It's against the law to sleep in your car. You are an effing criminal for wanting to go to sleep. Anyway, so that's a whole nother story. Homelessness is another story. But I dropped him off, told him where I was going to go. I drove to the bridge, or I drove to the parking lot. I think it's called the East parking lot. Walked my way there, hanging an attaché case of 6 collections of poetry I had made by that time. Hung it over the rail, climbed over, sat on what's called the court, which is at the outermost rail before it descends to the water. And I sat there and I'm looking out at the city and again thinking, it's not that I want to die, but I don't see an escape. I just don't see an escape from this. Because everywhere I turn, it's all about, yeah, well, how much money you got? It's not, oh, you can write a poem. Why don't you write a poem for me instead? You know? No. Anyway, so as I'm sitting there looking out over San Francisco, I hear a voice. I can't remember what he initially said, but it was California Highway Patrol. And as soon as he asked me where I lived, I just started crying. You know, back in the car. And so again, he's up there trying to do his best to talk me out of it. And one thing he said that was most powerful is, he said, you know, if you jump, it's going to be permanent. You cannot take it back. But emotions are like the weather, and the skies are gloomy. It's horrible now, but those skies, they will clear. It's gloomy now. The weather sucks now, but it will clear. But you'll already be gone because you jumped. You're dead. So you can't do anything. And another thing he said was you can do much more while you're alive than you can when you're dead. And so if you want to make any difference in the world, you can't. You're dead. You understand that. You're dead. You might want this, you might want that, you might hope this, but make no mistake, you're dead. You can't do it. So if you want any goodness to change in the world, you have to be that goodness. You have to be that change. And so I climbed back up over the rail and, you know, knew the procedure because I was a medic. And one of the things I was thinking too when I decided is that when I was a medic, we ran a call out to Arroyo Seco outside of Salinas, in the Salinas Valley. And Arroyo Seco is like a canyon that runs through the salad bowl of the world there. And there was a woman who was threatening to jump, so we were called out there. And we got there, sheriff said, it's yours, I don't know what to do. And she was sitting on the edge of this cliff. It's sure death if she were to jump. So I just walked a safe distance away from her so she knew I wasn't going to rush her to catch her. I wasn't in any way threatening to her. I stayed enough distance and I sat down on the ledge just like she was sitting on the ledge. And I was just looking out and I said, sure is beautiful here. And she goes, okay, all right, well, I'll go. And she went in and she... And
Really?
Yeah. And she went with me into the ambulance and she decided to
That's awesome.
decided to go. And I thought, what if she said, yeah, it's beautiful here, but so what? And she jumped. I would have the memory of, yuck. It would have forever broken my heart. I didn't want to do that to the officer who was obviously doing his best to give me hope. So that's why I climbed back up over the rails. And
Wow.
And he treated me with professional courtesy. He let me sit in the front seat with him. I really thought he'd remember me because I taught him something. He said, when I was handcuffed, and I'm in the front seat, but he let me sit in the front, not the back. And it was getting hot in the car, and I was wearing a baseball cap. So I just leaned forward and rolled the window down with my baseball cap. He said he never thought about that. He was like, oops. So if I wanted, I could have just rolled that down.
Yeah, there's no bars in the front seat. That's for sure. That's funny.
That's one of the reasons I thought he might remember me from. And then he was to take me to a transfer point where another officer was to pick me up and take me all the way in. Maybe it was a shift that off. I don't know. But literally, when we got in the car, I sang that song of an officer, and I sang it to tears. I mean, I was crying singing the song of an officer, which is a song of respect about how you put yourselves on the line to save others. But we get to this rendezvous point where he's supposed to give me to someone else, and he goes, "No, man, I got Shakespeare in the car. No, I got Shakespeare in the car, man.
I gotta keep him."
I heard him say that out to the other officers. I got Shakespeare in the car. No, you ain't getting him. And he took me all the way. And there he made a photocopy of.
I'm glad you clarified that because he said he took me in. I was like, it should have been the hospital, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Right. What do you guys think about setting up some type of forum, like at the local high school and all that stuff, with this group, maybe a couple others, and being able to open this type of dialogue up to the kids and be able to sit and listen to them? I don't think we used to do that. We did that once when I was working, and it was powerful, but it got a little bit chaotic because the kids were very angry. They did not like cops. You could tell. So I don't know how we can do it where maybe it might be better with retired police officers and stuff who can kind of get a little bit more candid and say, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. That might have been a little bit of police brutality on that one. And those are the ones where we need to report those people. So rather than fighting or becoming defiant and saying, no, F you, officer, I'm not getting out of the car. Just get out of the car. And then record all that stuff, and then report that person. Let's get these people exposed. Don't bow up because you're gonna lose.
But the one thing is that denies the very real trauma element that people have, where it becomes pathological, and it's not so much a choice to be afraid or be resistant. If you have lived experience of being wounded, being mistreated, or people being mistreated, it's not as easy to just get out of the car, because you legitimately, inside you, there's something that's freaking afraid. There's something inside of you that's terrified that the worst might be what happens. So no matter what someone else says, it's a base of the skull reaction where it has passed the line of reasoning. It's become pathological.
This is for the audio people. This is a white guy saying this, by the way.
Yeah, where people become afraid, and that's why I think it is so hard, and people shouldn't be called peace officers if they insult the community. If they're at the side of a vehicle and anything comes out of their mouth to disrespect the person behind it, they shouldn't be called peace officers, because peace officers means you foster peace. Name one person, and this will go right up to every. So you can have the whitest, most distinguished, I represent the white community in the best of possible ways. Even that person, mental, I forgot any words. I wanted to get so dramatic in that I forgot where I was even going with that. That person's mental health is malleable. Shit, where's I going with that description?
I know.
I tried to get so much the character that I forgot what I was going to describe about that character.
I felt it, whichever way you were going with it, man. It was
let me try to regain where I was going with that.
Where he looks like he wants to help you. No, he's like, I ain't going there. Well, so Joe asked me about some of the questions that he brought down as far as suicide. Did you know anybody who committed suicide? And there was an officer that I worked with, Miss Lori DeMont. I don't know if anybody remembers her, but I definitely the people who will listen to the podcast who I work with, they'll remember Lori. And she is a officer who came in, and she had her own style. She wasn't like one of these good old boy, good old girl types. She just wanted to be left alone, do her job. And and there might have been something that in the end, I think she ended up having a wife. So I don't know if that played a factor in why she felt alienated or something. I don't know, but it just seemed like I remember going on calls with her and having these conversations with her because I'm a rookie cop and I'm expecting her to be like, no, you don't do calls like that. You don't, this is how you act. And she wasn't. And I remember on one time there was a alarm call and it was a night, we were working a night shift together and she was my partner and I was new. And when you're new, you're so excited. Alarm call, you think there's a suspect in there. Let's go, whatever, and search the place and stuff. But so many different false alarms, and this was definitely a false alarm. So all you really do is just kind of make sure you shine your light, make sure everything's all safe and everything. Then you drive away and you move on. But I wanted to hop that fence and kind of go like search the place, and I was excited. And most other guys who at that time were like old fogies and stuff, they'd grab you like, "Shut up, you! Get out of here! You're bothering me!" And then they drive off and go find a place to park. So, but Lori wasn't like that. She's like, "Yeah, okay." And so she watched my back while I hopped the fence, and then she's like, "Okay, now cover me." And so she totally played along with me, and I'm covering her and all that stuff. And she hops the fence, and we go around, and it was just such a joy. There was nothing in that place. It was all dark and secure, but she made it so fun for me. And afterwards, she's just like, "Yeah, we did a good job. Good job, Rook." I was like, "Thanks." And then later on in life, she stopped becoming a cop and all that stuff. And then she ended up killing herself. So I don't know what happened where her spiral just became so so direct and so just powerful, where she could not get the help she was looking for. And I think about her all the time because I remember this highly joyful officer and just personality that was so caring and loving. And then she said that she had enough and she shot herself. So it's unfortunate. I just wish that there was a way to be able to fix it all. And I'm with you, Joe. I mean, it's very heartbreaking to know that you can't save everybody.
Hope is the wellspring of life, and all the things that chip away at our hope, chip away at ambition, chip away at achievement. And so that's, again, where language is so important. When language is not designed to build each other up, there's no good future down the road. So when we hear the talk from the top that's not building each other up, it's you are this and you are that and it's decay. That's just the beginning of decay. It is decay, and it's just a matter of time before we see the sores of that decay, which we've already started seeing. We see them in the violence. We see them in the mass shootings. Those are the eruptions of the sores of an infection that started way earlier, because you can't do that unless you've thought about it. You aren't thinking about it unless it's somehow the seed is in your head.
It's been there, yeah.
So there's plenty of time when people can get in there and say, no, that's not acceptable.
You're right.
No, you can't look at people like that. You know how many times I put myself in a position even to protect cops and they don't know anything about it because I'm all alone somewhere with somebody who wants to do violence or imagining revenge or retribution because something happened to them. And I consider the one time when I was taken to San Francisco General after I almost jumped off. One of the men who stayed with me for a couple nights, we shared a room. He was talking about how he wanted to blow up police stations because when he was 18, he was arrested and spent 10 years in jail in Hawaii. 10 of his prime years, 18 to 28. Think of what you were doing from 18 to 28. Compare it to sitting in a cage and see the difference of quality of life between. And so he's going on and he's talking about, how he wants to do all this violence and he hates cops and all of this. And I'm laying here, we're in the same room, 7th floor, San Francisco General Hospital, psychiatric unit. And I tell him, things have changed perhaps since he's been in there, but you can't talk that way now without possibly getting in trouble. And besides, cops have an important role to do. They have a very important job. And if there weren't those, they didn't have that job, society would suck on levels you couldn't even imagine. And, sorry you had those experiences. Well, suddenly he gets quiet. He sits up, puts on his clothes, walks over, turns the light on, comes over to me and stands up over me. He goes, I could murder you right now. I mean, and he had, he was a scrapper. He already told me he was a scrapper in prison. He enjoyed beating people up, and he got a lot of respect for it in prison. And now he's homeless in a psych unit, and life sucks, and he's got no problem going back to jail because he's respected there. He's got no problem going back to prison, and he wants to. And now he's standing over to me telling me he could murder me. And so here I am, and I knew he could. I'm in my boxers and a t-shirt, laying in bed, my arms like this, nothing over me but a little blanket. Now I've got a man who has killed people in the past standing over me, telling me that he could kill me. What do I do? And, I did what one thing that I need best to do. I said the difference between me and you is I would defend someone if they attacked you, but you wouldn't defend me if someone attacked me. That's the difference between me and you. I would defend you, but you wouldn't defend me. And I closed my eyes like that, sleep, and then I woke up. So that was the thing. But those were my words to him. That's the difference between me and you. I would defend you if someone attacked you, but you wouldn't defend me. And the next day when one of the psychiatrists was doing her daily check-in, she asked, and I told her to check on him because I knew he was depressed. I didn't tell her what he told me. I didn't tell her that he was threatening to kill cops. Didn't say any of that. I just told him he's really depressed, man. He's beyond depressed. Really needs help, big time. And she goes, oh, so are you telling me you think you're his counselor now?
That's all she got out of that?
I know.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, oh, and that's when same reaction. I had to take a deep breath.
Goodness.
I had to take a deep breath and go,
wow.
No, I have reason to believe, I have very good reason to believe that he's very depressed right now and needs as much support as he can get right now. Because if I said the other thing, then it would just take a different path.
Mr. Joe, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
it has been a pleasure. You know, we have many big days ahead of us. Many people to help. Many people to help. You know, I want to make sure that the things I said about the San Leandro Police Department did not change your view on them in any way.
No. Again, I love people, and I know that no matter what anyone's done in their past, we as individuals have a chance to be a whole new light for a person, a whole new example. So it doesn't really matter what anyone's been before that instant that you meet somebody, because if you give the best example by the respect you give, it doesn't matter what they've done before, because anybody can change at any instant to repent, to evolve, to mature, to just be a better person. And that just comes with understanding, I believe. And the only way they get that is by seeing it in somebody else. And so I look automatically at cops with respect, knowing that they're putting themselves on the line, which is a family trait for me, to love people enough to put themselves on the line. Within that, there could always be the individuals who do wrong. But again, even them, I believe, it can be turned around. There is hope for all of humanity. And so I'm going to keep that. I've had good experiences with the department. And I go out there with the coffee with the cops every now and then. I like keeping my finger on the pulse of humanity. And the best way to do that is to interact with the people who are out there doing it, who are out there keeping humanity safe the best they can, who are out there keeping humanity as thriving as it can. And the only way it can thrive is if it feels safe. And the only way it can feel safe is if people know they can't just victimize other people without consequences. So when people have an illusion of, we don't need police, it's an illusion, because as long as there's people who are willing to victimize people, you have to have the brave individuals who are willing to step in.
I'm brave.
And
he just called me brave. Oh,
yeah, you have to be willing to stand in there and be that defense and be that defining line of humanity. And that's what caring enough about others is. It's getting involved when it's time to get involved. It's not standing back and waiting for somebody else to do something. And I think big examples we have of that are the comparison of Uvalde even and Memphis. Is it Memphis where the school shooting was, the Covenant? You know, you had the officers who were just waiting, who were waiting for a command, waiting for permission, waiting for someone else to take the lead. No, but if you have enough love, you're going to be like that mother who said, F all of you, I'm going in there to get my child. And there was officers in the Uvalde situation who were waiting. It took all that time before the Border Patrol said, we're going in, we don't care, we get in trouble for it, we're going in. And humanity in general is like that. The best place to find a pair of helping hands is at the end of your own two arms. If we want the world to be a better place, we got to be the ones willing to make it that way and not waiting for someone else to do it. And part of that means that if someone's talking shit about another human being, we have to be willing enough to stand up and be a counter voice to that, to look for the good in others, to have empathy, to understand that, people have reasons for doing the things that might look terrible, but let's understand it. And sure, there are those who are malicious, and that's where it becomes good to know there are predators and there are prey. And those who are going to be predatory, again, it's up to those who would be prey to recognize, wait a second, I got horns, so no, F you, F you, F you. And that's kind of the world wants to make people forget. You don't have real sharp horns on top of your head.
True.
I'm gonna bite you by the neck, and you're gonna accept it and like it, okay? No, I'm not. And so we need to be a little more. No, I'm not.
I love it.
You're not
I
gonna
love
victimize
it.
me. You're not gonna put your teeth in me and stand our ground. But part of that is standing ground is also having enough faith that right down to the end, believe another person can see the light and turn around. And that's been important because all the people who come up to me and even meant me harm, because after leaving the ambulance, I made it my mission to walk the streets and try to understand and talk peace. And I would break groups up that were fighting, people up that were fighting. And it takes enough faith to get in there that even if you might get hit, it's okay because that doesn't change the truth. If I say something true and someone punches me in the face for it, well, it's still true. So I got punched in the face. Big deal. I'll just wake up in a hospital and share my smile there, you know? But we have to have enough love and belief in other people that they can hear the truth, that they deserve hearing it and are respected enough that we give it to them instead of resorting to name calling and ultimately the worst things that can happen in society, which is war, even civil war. We've proven that we can get along. We have proven that even any differences we have, we can see the best in each other, work together, and thrive. And that's what we need to keep doing and not listen to those voices that say, no, it's them against us, it's us against them. Only in an imagined world is it us against them. Otherwise, we're all in it together and we are all just walking each other home. So let's be nice about it.
Ooh, see? Kshed Uncuffed. Episode 16, yeah. It's gonna end right there on a fantastic note and all that stuff. See, you guys, you thought it was just me, man. There's a revolution of people who are tired of the ugliness that's out there in the world. And inch by inch, we're gonna figure out how to piece together and band together and get rid of the ills of this world. COVID was a nasty, nasty thing, but I think if there's anything good out of it, from my point of view, this is just my point of view, it has exposed many of the ugliness and the snakes and the rats and stuff who've been hiding behind closed doors with this institutionalized type attitudes and racism, if that's what you want to call it, and discrimination against people who don't look like them. Now it's more even, and if you look around, there's always there's steadily all these head guys of these corporations all over the place are now falling because of their inability to adjust to what's going on in the world. Love is going to prevail, and this guy right here, Mr. Joe, he exemplifies what's so beautiful about this world. So Kshed Uncuffed is going to end it right there with this fantastic word, man. Man, tell the world how much you love them again one more time, brother.
Man, I love all of you, and it's up to all of us to do this together. We're all going to make mistakes. We've all made mistakes. The absence of forgiveness is an arrow to the heart of the future. So let's not draw back that bow. Let's look for the best in each other, have vision, and work hard to make that happen. So, Kshed Uncuffed, out.